Good morning everyone, welcome to this fine Saturday morning. It's not raining, the bunnies are in the garden, and you join me at the kettle of infinite wisdom, or infinite brews. And here we are. Well, today I'm going to be looking at this new aircraft that I've made. I say new. This is a UAV or UCAV, remote piloted Folland Gnat conversion from the Airfix kit. So I'll start with the kit, so if you're only interested in the kit, then you can look away. So I've got one of these Airfix Gnat kits, and really nice model actually. It was a shame to kind of abuse it, but there we go. So this is ready now for the 21st century warfare. This is a UAV or uncrewed aerial vehicle version. Now I'll be looking at close air support and how this little Gnaughty Gnat, or Naughty Gnat with a G, fits in. So to convert the Airfix kit, I've added a couple of GBU 39 small diameter bombs underneath. I've added a forward looking infrared tracking sensor turret, and I've added some rocket assisted takeoff bottles from a Edward MiG-21 kit. It's got some missile alert warning system sensors on the wings, and it's got some chaff and flare dispensers mounted above the rear fuselage there. So this is totally autonomous in flight, can be controlled and flown using AI on a planned route with man-in-the-loop targeting, or a pilot from a safe location can fly it. Like I said, it's got those two small diameter bombs with a 40-kilometer launch range, which can be used to attack targets. It's got a sensor there for reconnaissance, and it has extremely short takeoff capabilities. It doesn't need a lot of runway at all. A range of around 500 miles, and it just blasts off from a very short space, jettisons those rocket assisted takeoff bottles, and then can resume its mission. And it's a lower cost aircraft compared to piloted aircraft like the Hawk, which the Malagasy Whatif Air Force flies for close support, and certainly lower cost than things like the Gripen, the J-10. Lower cost in that you're not putting pilots in harm's way, which I think is really important and crucial. So here we go, the Gnaughty Gnat, as made by me for the Whatif Malagasy Air Force. The reason they've got the Gnat is there's loads of them lying around. Malagasy Air Force never throws anything away. This was used in large numbers as a training aircraft. Spare parts available from the Indian Aerospace Division, and yeah, a nice low cost UAV to be used in battlefield support. And now we'll look at close air support and the doctrine of the Malagasy Whatif 172nd Air Force and Armed Forces. So if you're only interested in the plane, now's your time to look away. If you want to know about how I plan to use these Gnaughty Gnats, then stay tuned. So first of all, what is close air support? Well, I've taken the US Army definition of close air support, and this is based on a video that Casmo did. Casmo is a former Apache pilot, so I'm using some of his doctrine and tactics which he's explained, which is all open source, nothing sensitive here. So this is just from what I've gleaned from the internet. I'm not in the forces, these are my personal opinions, non-political. So close air support, air action by aircraft against hostile targets that are in close proximity to friendly forces, and it required detailed integration of each air mission with the fire and movement of those forces. Now, what Casmo explained in his video is that Apaches and other helicopter assets in the Malagasy Armed Forces operate the AH-1F SES Cobra, the latest model, as upgraded similar to the Jordanians but taken a step further. They don't require detailed integration because they count as assets that would be within the battle group or within the battle group command structure. So they're like artillery, like calling in a fire mission, or they have their own kill boxes and they're assigned into the battle group plan. So we're talking about stuff which requires joint terminal air control or JTAC control. And here is some JTACs. He's got a laser ranging device, and his mate there would have the radio as well. So helicopters I'm not covering in this video, but they are of course very important. I'm looking at primarily fixed or wing assets of the Malagasy Armed Forces in this video. Now, we need to understand firstly what the differences are and why we're seeing certain things in combat and how the Gnaughty Gnat will feature. So, low intensity warfare, close air support. If you think of Afghanistan, if you think of Gaza, if you think of most of the conflicts in the Middle East, Iraq, 2003, that kind of thing. We're looking at low intensity air environment after a while, low intensity warfare, asymmetric warfare. We're looking at insurgencies being combated. You've not got the same air threat that you'd have in the opening days of a conflict, and you've not got the same air threat from integrated air defence systems. And what that means is it means that the close air support aircraft, here we've got the Malagasy Hawks, we've got a J-10C, and we've got a Gripen, and these are the primarily the types that the Malagasy Armed Forces use for close air support, along with the Rafale for the support of Marines, and the Skyhawks, of course, for the Marines. So they can fly at medium altitude, they can use their targeting systems, their sensor pods, they can use things like this. Here we go on the J-10C, we've got the Lightning pod as made by Israel. Same thing on the Gripen, the Lightning pod. A really benign air threat environment, and they can fly at medium altitude. The JTAC can call in fires from the aircraft for troops in contact or support missions. They can do shows of forces where they fly over, sort of to deter people. They can use precision guided munitions, JDAMs or rockets, and they can attack the targets relatively easily from medium altitude without any threat. So really, that's where these aircraft really shine, that they can drop extremely precise ordnance onto a target, controlled by the JTACs, very low threat to the aircraft, very precise strikes. They can really hit the enemy where it hurts without themselves being hurt. And an example of that would be on the Hawks, where we've got an AGM-65 Maverick. Now, the Hawks that I use for close air support have the rear canopy blanked out. They've got extra avionics and fuel capacity. So those are two close attack Hawks. I do have forward air controller ones, which have the 2 seats in. And this is all fine until you get to a high intensity peer-to-peer conflict, like what's happening in the war in Ukraine. And this is really an interesting learning point, and this is where the Gnaughty Gnat fits in. So in the war in Ukraine, you've got aerial air denial concepts being used. So no one has air superiority, and the surface to air threat against both Russian and Ukrainian aircraft is significant. So what you're seeing is a different set of close support tactics. So the integrated air defence threat, the umbrella of the surface to air missiles, really prevents aircraft from operating in the traditional way at medium altitude. And here I've had to expand the range scale. So if we take low intensity conflict, we can say that the ranges are very close for close air support. Here we're looking at a lot further away, a larger range scale. And the reason is because these surface to air missile threats push the supporting air assets out of range. So the only way you can counter this, and the way that the Russians are countering this, and I think we need to learn from what they're doing, even though we obviously don't condone what they're doing, we need to learn, is they're using lofting tactics. Now I'll post a video, again I don't condone what they're doing, but I'll post a video in the description so you can see what they're doing. And the Malagasy Air Force has responded to this and learnt from this. And what they're doing is they're flying at extreme low level, ultra low level. They are pulling up at the last minute when they hit their target release point, bomb release point, rocket release point, pulling up into a climb. They're lofting rockets onto the target. It's less accurate, but it's like having an aerial artillery barrage onto the target. The aircraft then does a turn out of range, all at low level, trying to keep its altitude ultra low level to avoid being shot down. And this is because of the very short range surface to air missiles, and also the longer range, the integrated air defence threat. So ultra low level operations, and we can see that the Malagasy Hawks are equipped for this mission, and they fly at low level, come along into a pull-up, loft the rockets, turn, keep their altitude low, and off they go out of the danger zone. Operating in pairs, as does the Russian model. Generally they would have the same configuration on each aircraft. I've just done this a bit differently because it's a bit boring if you just model the same thing. But these are using CVR-7 rockets, and here we've got some Zunis and a Maverick, but really both of the pair would be flying with the same weapons system. So that's one way of countering the threat and giving close support. The second way is that you are operating outside the range of the integrated air defence system, and you're using long-range glide bombs. Now, again, the Malagasy Armed Forces have learnt from the Russians. So here we have a conversion of Fab 500 bombs. We've got a laser-guided Fab 500 bomb there, and we've got a TV-guided Fab 500 bomb there. And on this J-10C, all of these bombs are equipped with glide wings. So the aircraft is flying outside the integrated air defence zone, and then it drops these glide bombs and it tosses these glide bombs towards the target. The glide bombs are guided by GPS or GLONASS and other sensors. They can be guided by lasers from the JTAC in the terminal phase. They're lofted on and then they hit the target. So that's the other way of providing close air support. The Gripen is carrying two 2,000-pound GBU 15 IR EO electrical optical guided bombs there, and again the same thing, these are long range standoff weapons to give close air support. So that's how the Russians are using them, and that's what the Malagasy Armed Forces have learned and taken into their close air support doctrine. Targeting can also be provided in this environment by low observable drones such as the EADS, the Barracuda, EADS, which is like a European defence manufacturer. I think it's Airbus actually, and that can provide you with guidance for the guided bombs. And being low observable, it can operate in this environment in a way that other aircraft can't. Now you notice I've not featured the FC-31. They have a different role in the Malagasy Whatif Armed Forces, although they can do close air support if they need to. So where does the Gnaughty Gnat fit in? Well, even if you're operating in this environment at ultra low level, or at trying to be outside the integrated air defence zone, you're still vulnerable. As the Ukrainians have proved by moving missile systems forward, by linking them to NATO AWACS, data links, different types of radars, the Russians have lost a lot of aircraft, even trying to stay out of the air defence zone. They've also lost a lot at low level, either through crashes or for being shot down by things like Stingers. So the Gnaughty Gnat fits into this agenda because the Gnaughty Gnat is an uncrewed aerial vehicle. It's got the ability to do standoff, loft and toss bomb attacks using the GBU-39s, but if one of these does get shot down where you've not lost a crew member, these are very easy to produce from old airframes. They are simple aircraft, very low cost, easy to operate and easy to maintain. So it can go into the zone of danger, provide support using the GBU-39s, and if it gets shot down, it gets shot down. If it doesn't, and it is equipped with countermeasure systems, well, it's going to be draining and attriting the enemy air defences anyway. But it's a good way of pushing forwards low cost, close air support in a way that doesn't endanger crew. So that is how I've come up with this use for the Gnaughty Gnat, and I'll be making a few more of these. And the Gnaughty Gnat is got very high availability rates. It doesn't depend on pilot fatigue. You can keep these flying almost around the clock to give you the support. And the idea is that it can actually enter into this threat zone when it needs to, deliver the support to the troops that it needs to, and remain a low cost and a way of preserving valuable pilots that otherwise would be put at extreme risk. So all of these will operate together. Now there'll be times where this is more useful than the Hawks and the J10s and the Gripens, and it will be for the JTACs to determine which asset they're using, but it's a good way of giving the Malagasy Armed Forces more support. The other way that they'll be doing this is with the Big Masher drone, and again the Big Masher drone gives you the ability to go into this high threat environment and take out targets, although this will tend to be used more for interdiction. So that's where the Gnaughty Gnat fits in. I hope this is useful for you. And the last question is this new? And my point is no, this isn't new. Most air forces, most armed forces will have known about these issues. In Vietnam, they flew at medium altitude out of the short range ground fire threat, and they used loft and toss techniques in the Vietnam War. And in the Cold War, if you look at Harriers and what they were equipped for, they were equipped for ultra low level flying. So it's not new, but it's come back into focus because of what's happening in the war in Ukraine. Again, I don't condone Russian actions, but it helps you to understand what's going on, and hopefully it helps you to understand why I've converted this Airfix Gnat into the Gnaughty Gnat. Take care.